Welcome to the Ocean Community 50 Under 50 series, presented by the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce. The road to success starts at Valenti family of auto dealerships, and visibility along the journey increases greatly with the help of 321 Media. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce's 50 Under 50 Awards, brought to you by Valenti family of dealerships. My name is Ben Barber from 321 Media, and I am so excited because today's honoree is somebody that I haven't spent enough time with, so I'm really excited to get to know her a little bit more. Suzanne Giorno, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations on being one of the 50 Under 50.
Thank you.
Now, this is the uncomfortable part of the interview where I read your bio at you. I not to you, at you.
Okay.
I make you listen to your own bio.
Oh, fantastic.
Here we go. Suzanne Giorno is a dynamic and accomplished professional with a diverse background in law, finance, education, and public service. She currently serves as a program representative specialist at Electric Boat, where she applies her broad skill set to the Maintenance and Modernization Program Office. Before joining EB, Suzanne built a career that spanned the legal, financial, and academic sectors. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Pre-Law, Political Science, and Women's Studies, as well as a Juris Doctorate. Did I say that right?
Juris Doctorate,
okay.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
With a concentration in contracts, business, and administrative law. I'm already so impressed. Among her impactful contributions, Suzanne authored New York's version of Megan's Law for the state assembly, legislation that became a model nationwide to protect children. She also completed a clerkship with multiple New York state courts and taught college-level law courses, passing on her extensive knowledge. A licensed private detective since age 18. What? Suzanne also owned and operated her own detective agency. Her intellectual curiosity led her to become a licensed financial advisor, earning both Series 7 and Series 66 certifications. I will pretend like I know what that means, and I'll ask you later. In addition to her professional achievements, Suzanne served 2 terms as vice president of the town council, chair of the appointments committee, and town liaison for the veterans committee. She remains active in her community through roles with the Westerly Library in Wilcox Park, Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce, Granite Theater, and as a youth sports coach. What? Honored with the Southeastern Connecticut 40 Under 40 and the WBLQ Community Service Award, Suzanne is most proud of her role as a dedicated mother to her 2 children, Tony and Mariana.
Yeah.
Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you.
How
I
you
appreciate
doing?
that. Good. It's funny to sit here and listen to that about yourself, I guess. That's pretty neat, Bo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
What got you interested in law?
Well, my father was the chief of police in the town I grew up in prior to him becoming.
Where'd you grow up?
Albion, New York, right between Rochester and Buffalo on Lake Ontario. We have the Erie Canal running right through our town. It's a really great community, and I still go up and visit all my friends and family that are still there. And I always have a dear place in my heart. That was a great community to grow up in. My father was the chief of police there. And prior to, he was the head investigator for the sheriff's department. And so I grew up a little different than others. There's kids outside. I mean, I made snowmen and such, but it was kind of funny.
And then you arrested them.
Right. Well, my dad would say, there's sneakers or prints going through the snow. Let's figure out who it is. We'd get the wax out. We'd temper the wax, pour it in, try to get a mold of what it is, what kind of shoe print, what size, all that fun stuff. So I grew up a little different, hence the fact that I became a private investigator at a young age. My father, my mother, and myself, all 3 of us were licensed investigators in New York when I was 18, 19, all the way up through. And then I went to law school. After college.
What does being a PI at 18 look like? I mean, what does being a PI actually look like?
Kind of
Because
fun.
you only see it in like movies and TV shows. Like in real life, what does that look like?
Well, it depends on the cases you're doing. I know there's a lot of infidelity cases that we used to do. You know, my husband's cheating on me, my wife's cheating on me type thing. And we would do that, yes. But also there was fraud cases. In New York, we did accident reconstruction. If an insurance company said that they didn't believe it was their client's fault that this accident occurred, then they would have us go out and we would do the investigation to make sure. Fraud cases, injury cases, if someone said that they got injured at work and they were unable to perform their duties and go to work, but yet you see them at a football field playing with their friends and tackling and this and that, but they can't stock a shelf at a grocery store, then we would get the investigation to be able to put forth evidence to help the insurance company at that point.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I always heard about stuff like that.
Mhm. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I right now I'm so busy with my position at EB and all I'm doing, you know, I'm helping my daughter with her softball team. I've coached softball and basketball for the last 6 years and I've
How old is
enjoyed it. She's 11.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a lot
Awesome.
of fun. We just celebrated her 11th birthday this last weekend, and it was a lot of fun. And then my son is 16, so he's driving now. He's got his driving permit, and we're out there. We're practicing. So I should send out a public notice where we're going to be.
Please,
Yeah,
please, actually.
because it is kind of scary, you know. I never really thought about it, but I remember growing up, my mom used to say, "Gosh, it goes so fast," and it really does, you know. Like I look at him, he says, "Can I drive your car?" And I think, "Oh my gosh, just yesterday you were in kindergarten. What happened?" Yeah.
My dad had a stroke while I had my driver's permit. And so my uncle taught me how to drive for the most part. And one of the first things that we ever did was, for some reason, he decided to take me on Airport Road in the summer.
Right. That's a little busy.
So I'm coming from like the Watch Hill area up Airport Road, and it's the turn down Winnipesaukee for Musqueam.
Sure.
And it's, I mean, to take that left, to go through that and try to take that left, and I was so scared.
Yeah.
People kept cutting me off. He finally got out of the passenger seat and just yelled, "Hey, student driver here!"
That's
and
great.
and I was so embarrassed. But I wish that someone had sent out a PSA.
Right.
Just, "Hey, student driver, watch out."
Yeah. I like to go to, you know, the school when no one's there. I like to go to the beach before it gets busy, those types of places. Because it's a little nerve wracking, you know, especially when the population almost doubles in the summertime and it's coming up quick. We're getting there.
Now, are your, you don't have to go too deep into this, but are your kids in the Westerly school system?
They are. Yeah. My son's in high school. He's a junior this year. And my daughter's in the middle school and she's in 5th grade.
Well, if she plays baseball and softball, she's got a lot to look forward to because the Westerly Middle School girls have just been on a tear.
They're amazing
for the last few years.
Yeah,
and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So amazing program she's working through. What does your son like to do for fun?
Well, he was on the football team. He did have an injury that he sustained. So then he started with jujitsu. So he's a real big fan of jujitsu. He was on the Westerly golf team as well.
Nice.
So I like the fact that he plays golf because I've been a golfer since I was a kid. And so finally I bought him clubs when he was 4 and 5 years old. He never wanted to use them, never was interested until recently, but I'm thrilled. I'm like, yay, I have somebody to play golf with. It's good.
My business partner is like, "Can we cover the golf team?" And I'm like, "Can you buy me 19 cameras?"
Right.
Like,
it's tough. Yeah. You kind of have to be at every hole there. Yeah.
Yeah. And a fleet of drones.
Certainly.
But
that would be so cool though. I mean,
it would be amazing.
Right.
I would love it.
Yeah. Ask for sponsors. It could happen.
Yeah. So tell me about your time working in New York as a lawyer or in law, and and how like going to school and Mary's Law and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So, grew up Western New York, like I said. Went to college at State University of New York at Brockport. During Brockport, I started out. I was a pre-med biology major. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, and then I realized my first year I took a 300 level political science class, and I thought, I love this. This is great. They want to know what I think. No one. All the other classes, they don't want to know what you think. In math class, they don't care what you think. There's an answer. Social studies, same thing. They don't care what you think. It's an answer. But there's always something. But political science, they wanted to know, well, what did you think about this? And I'll never forget Dr. McDonald saying that to me one day in class. Well, Miss Murphy, what did you think about this? Well, it was okay. She says, well, what do you mean it's okay? Well, what did you think? Was he right? Was he wrong? Was it BS? What was it? I was like, it was kind of BS. And then she said, elaborate. Right then, it kind of sparked something in me. And I realized at that point that I needed to change my major. And I did to pre-law political science because it just something inside me. I said, well, this is what I'm meant to do. And from that point, I took all my legal classes. I applied for an internship, was accepted at the New York State Assembly, went and worked for Assemblyman Nesbitt. I also did some work for Senator Maziar while I was there.
Was that in Albany?
It was in Albany, yeah. And I love Albany. It was a great little city. It was a lot of fun. Not a big attitude, but a great little city. And just a great experience. I was 20 years old when I helped to write Megan's Law, and
wow.
We got that ready to go.
And so what is Megan's Law?
It's a pedophile restrictive law that doesn't allow individuals who were arrested for molestation of a child. It doesn't allow them to get out on bail at a certain point in time. And the reason why is because there's a certain percentage, and it's quite high. I can't remember the exact percentage now, but it's quite high for pedophiles to repeat that crime while out on bail during that time. So they wanted to protect the children, and that was the reason for the law.
Well, that is like the most common sense law that I think everybody
Makes
can
sense.
get behind. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and that has been adopted across the country.
It has.
So that's gotta feel like a huge accomplishment.
It's,
How long were you were 20 when that happened?
I was 20 when that happened. And then I stayed on with the assembly even after the internship to help with some other legislation. And we were going through some changes in the economic system at the time. I know the governor at the time was Pataki, and so we had a lot going on with that. I worked on the Republican side at that time, and it's always a battle between the two parties, unfortunately. But that's something I learned really early on, is that we're all here for the same reason. We just need to stop putting up these boundaries in between us, these huge brick walls that say you can't go along with this law because it wasn't written by a Democrat, or you can't go along with it because it wasn't written by a Republican. And we can't do that to ourselves. Let's stop labeling ourselves and just do what's best for our area. And I think that alone helped me when I decided to run for council here in Westerly. I did gain a lot of support from both sides. And I think that's how it has to be. You're not going to get anywhere if you are reluctant to come off of certain national political ties. And I don't think that we need that in the town of Westerly. We just need to realize this is Westerly. Let's protect it. It's unique in and of itself, and let's try to keep it that way.
Yeah, if you talk about the issues locally that you care about and you don't ever mention anything about the national politics of anything, you're going to get a lot more support locally.
Yeah, well, it's not even that, but it's trying to put people back into perspective.
Yeah.
We can talk national politics all day long.
Sure, but you got to fix potholes and you got to do the stuff you need to do. Yeah, absolutely. What brought you to Westerly?
Well, when I was in law school, there was a gentleman that sat ahead of me in evidence class. And, when you have these ideas of what you want to do in your future, my idea was that I was going to go back to New York and be this really predominant attorney. And I was going to become a senator and do all of that. And then love smacks you in the face and says, we're going to get married and eventually move to Rhode Island. We moved down to the Outer Banks of North Carolina and taught law in Chesapeake, Virginia, and bought our first home in the Outer Banks and loved it. But then when, we discussed having a family and everything, when I grew up, I was around my grandparents and my aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody.
Sure.
And so we basically said, okay, pick one, your hometown or my hometown. And because Tony was from here in Westerly, we came back to Westerly.
Nice.
And I enjoy it. I thoroughly love Westerly, and I do believe we made the right decision.
Well, it's been a success, you being here in Westerly, obviously.
Thank you.
And so what made you want to get involved and run for town council here?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I attended, my son went to Bradford school because I had petitioned the school to allow him to go to Bradford because I knew it was such a great little school. He was attending State Street School. I didn't particularly care for the way things were going over there for him, and I thought it'd be best if I took him to Bradford. I absolutely loved that little school. It was great. So he went there. And then they closed Bradford his third grade year. So fourth grade, he ended up in Dunn's Corners. But I was attending a meeting, the school committee meeting, to voice my concern for them wanting to close Bradford. And I saw some individuals up there on the school committee at the time, and I didn't really care for the way that they acted. And I thought it wasn't a good showing for our kids. Children tune into those meetings and they're looking at these individuals sitting up there, and they're supposed to be looking up to them to a point. And I didn't really like what I saw. And I thought, well, this needs to be changed. And then when I dove in a little bit to see what was going on the council, it was even worse. And I thought, oh my, it seemed like there was just too many people that were stuck up on their pedestal, not really working together to get things done at the time. And I knew that could be changed if we could just communicate and just come down to earth and say, hey, you know what? It's okay. We might not agree on everything, but we should be able to talk through everything, and we can make things happen in this town if we just work together. We're not all going to sit around and sing Kumbaya, but we certainly can, be civil and understand what would be the best for our town. And I enjoyed the 4 years that I was on the council.
You were only on for 4 years?
4 years. That's well, term limits.
Okay.
You're only allowed two-year terms. I know that there's been elections since then that have changed that based on, vote count. They can stay on for 4 years, and they're trying to do, which is a good thing. They're trying to
stagger.
Yeah, stagger it a bit so that it's not one big punch. Like after I left, it was myself, Karen, Sharon, Brian McEwen was there. Who else do we have? Chris, Duhamel, Caswell Cook. When we all left, because we did our 4 years together, it was almost a brand new council that walked in. Phil Overton was there with us our last couple years on the council, and so at least they had somebody when everyone else was elected to try to guide a little bit. But it's difficult. You don't want a full sweep. That's very difficult.
That sounds very difficult. How did you end up at EB?
I ended up at EB because I met so many people here in Westerly and around the communities that were telling me you can do anything over there, and I kept thinking, what does that mean? What do you mean I can do anything? And, but I started looking on the portal. They have this website over there, gdeb.com. And so I went on and I looked and I saw some of the positions and they were all interesting. And I saw an investigation position and I read it and I thought, oh, this is interesting. I have these skills and everything. So I applied. I went for the interview and the gentleman who interviewed me said, this position isn't what you really think it is. And I said, oh, because I was explaining to him, I'd like to utilize my legal, my financial, all these, things. And he said, well, it's interesting, but it's not going to fulfill everything that you want to do. And I said, oh, okay. And so I kept looking and I saw a position that came out for a program office. And at the time, I didn't really understand fully what that meant. So I asked around, and everybody pretty much said that's everyone's goal at EB is to get to program office. They work their way up to it, and they do. And I said, oh, well, it sounds interesting. I'm going to go for it. Why not? What do you have to lose? And I applied, and it was a couple weeks later, I got a call for an interview. It happened to be during COVID. I did the interview over the phone. There was 5 gentlemen on the line, and we talked. And during the interview, it was quite funny. My former manager, Brian Pringer, he just retired. Great guy from Westerly, has been here forever. He has 5 daughters here in Westerly, good family. He said during the interview, full disclosure, I just want to be very transparent. He said, I'm a Westerly resident, and I want to thank you for your service. And I was like, oh, that's so nice, and I had not met him before that, but I'm glad I have since, and he's a great guy. But it was very comforting, just the idea. Westerly people are very comforting. And I know people are probably sitting home saying, yeah, right. But in all honesty, it's true. I owned a restaurant in Pawcatuck when we first moved back here.
What was the restaurant?
Antonio's.
Okay, yeah.
And it was right across from the Whistle Stop, or was the Whistle Stop.
Yep,
and
I remember.
I loved it. And I cooked because we had big passion for food and cooking. And so I cooked day in and day out, and I met some really great people. And it was awesome. And just being in that whole business world down here allowed me to meet some of these other people. I remember when Perks and Corks opened, and they would come to us before they had their shifts for the day, and they would say, we need margarita paninis. And I would make them all these sandwiches, and they would go off to work down there. And it's just it's a great community, business community. And the chamber goes a long way to make sure that's the case too.
Okay, so you owned a restaurant, you've been on the town council, you were a private investigator at 18, you helped write one of the nation's most important new laws years ago when you were 20 to protect children.
Mm-hmm.
You, I think I mentioned financial advisor. Now you got the job everybody wanted at EB and worked hard for, worked their way up to, and you were like, no, I'll just take it.
I love
it. You've won the Southeastern Connecticut 40 under 40 award 10 years ago. You won the WBLQ Community Service Award. What, like, the restaurant threw me. What haven't you, are you going to write a book at some point?
I would love to. You don't know how many I've started, actually, and they are not about me, just out of things that spring into mind. And I think this should be a story. And then my mind goes to, I should make a movie, but it's just, I think you only get one ride on this roller coaster of life. And I think that, you just got to make the best out of it every day and say, if this is what you want to do it,
Yeah.
So this last weekend, we just celebrated my daughter's 11th birthday. And every year I ask the kids, I said, so what do you want for a theme? And they get to pick a theme because, oh gosh, one day back 10 years ago, I decided that I was going to be cake boss, right? So you watch the shows, you see the stuff. And then I said, I can do that. I can definitely do that. It looks like Play-Doh. I got this, right? So, so she picked Beetlejuice as her theme. And so this weekend I did a Beetlejuice cake for her birthday party. And I love that. And when I show people, they say, you've missed your calling. This is so cool. You should have done that, and
So when's the bakery opening?
Right. Like that would be fun. And I would love to do that. If I was cloned,
I feel like it's going to happen. I don't know why. I don't know what way the wind is going to blow that's going to make you want to do it, but you're going to do it.
Yeah.
What else can you add to this resume? So you've done a lot of community service. You've done obviously your work as a councilman, and also with the chamber, with a whole bunch of other things. What made you want to get involved with the chamber, for example, or any of the other nonprofits that you work with?
Well, I absolutely love the Chamber of Commerce here. I just can't say no to Lisa Kanicki. It's just something about her. She's very compelling, but she's so empowering of others. And I think it's the fact that you want to be part of something that's so great and successful, especially for our community. So even before the chamber, I remember volunteering at the Virtue Art Festival and sitting there and painting little kids' faces and doing craft projects and all that
I
fun
actually
stuff.
think that's where I met you for the first
I
time.
think so
Was the
too.
Virtue Art Festival.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so. And that was so much fun. And I enjoyed every minute of it. And just to see Lisa's interaction with everyone, not just the business owners, but the community itself was great. And it was empowering, it was inspiring, and I wanted to help. So whenever she calls, I'm there. And even when she doesn't, it'll pop into my mind and okay, the lights parade is coming up. Do I need to go and pick up walkie talkies, or we have our own now, or what are we doing? How are we going? And over the years, it's fun because when we first started the lights parade, it took hours and hours and hours, and there's still a lot of planning that the chamber does. But for the volunteers, when we show up, it's basically easy now because we've done it for a while. We get it now. It's like you go here, I'll go there, I'll yell at everybody down here, you yell at everybody there. And it's just it's good. It comes together, but it's inspiring. She's great. That 350th anniversary of the town of Westerly was probably one of the most remarkable events that any community anywhere could probably ever have. Just to
the
see
train.
that. Oh, the train in the
through the park was so cool.
great.
And the swans.
Swan boats,
Oh
you'll
my
never see
God,
that again.
no.
When will you ever see that? That is amazing. Just the cake that they did, that was the town. I mean, it was just remarkable. Everybody came together for that. I co-chaired the committee for the New Year's events that happened, and Diane Bowdy was the co-chair with me, and she was phenomenal. It was awesome. We ordered ice sculptures. I said, I'm going to order ice sculptures. She said, yeah. So we just, and then she said, well, I'm going to get a snow globe that people can bounce it and do a picture opportunity. And, that'll be awesome. And when you're setting that up in the town hall, it's just such a cool thing. Like, here's this big bouncy house, snow globe, and the community loved it. They embraced it. We did the little copper or golden bells that everyone rang at the exact time that the town was fun. It was phenomenal. It was awesome. Just the feeling that we pulled that off. It was a great accomplishment. I'm still dear friends with a lot of people from that committee. I work with Chris Green over at EB. She's on the same floor I am. She was in charge of the capsule, the time capsule with Caswell Cook. They were on that committee together, and that was really cool. So I probably won't be around when they unveil the next capsule, but my children will certainly.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, I guess.
You never know. 100, 150,
yeah,
150.
There you go. That's right. I love it.
So I mentioned that you won the WBLQ Community Service Award. You, before we started talking on air, talked about WBLQ and how much Chris meant to you. What did it mean to win that award and to just be like, to have that?
Chris was a dear friend. He's missed daily. He had a lot. He had a lot of great things for this community. He did a lot. Gave his heart and soul, and every day. Just a truly great guy, and he is missed. I do remember I did the council's listening show, and then I was on the Veterans Hour with my veteran friends, and so while we were there, my daughter used to come down and she would introduce sports, and then she would also do the joke of the day. And so she was so fun, and she would sit right there at the little round table, and we'd go back and forth, and she'd comment during the radio show. And we always said how cool that was, right? Like, I can't imagine being 8 years old and on a radio show. Like, she was really cool about it. But Chris was awesome. Very, just great with kids, great with others, Wolfman Jack down there, Wolfman Zach. He inspired him, empowered him to do what he wanted to do and fulfill his dreams by being on a radio show. But he did that with everybody individually daily. So when he surprised me with the WBLQ's service award, I was completely blown away. We were in the middle of the show talking, and then I look over and Mariana's face kind of went, askew. And I looked and I thought, what is he doing? And I turned around, he's standing there with an award, big smile. I'm like, oh my gosh. And It was great, but it was funny because it was like 2 months past due. And if everyone who knows Chris knows that huge heart, limited time. I mean, lots of things going on. But that was a really great moment. And I was very proud to receive that award. It was nice.
What does it mean to you to be one of the 50 under 50?
I'll tell you what, I looked at the list of individuals that I'm sharing this award with, and I'm so thoroughly impressed. I love the fact that I go down through that list and I'm just over and over again. I see Mel from Mel's Downtown Creamery. I'm like, oh my goodness, well deserved. Excellent job. Brian from Perks and Corks. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like I'm going through the list and I'm just completely Rob Grayson, president of the Bocce Club, as well as, involved in the chamber, always out there doing stuff. I look through this list of individuals and I'm like, wow, I'm very truly honored to be part of this. I was talking to Antonella Rizzo about it, and she owns Deja Vu. I'll tell you what, just true community people. I was talking to her while we were stuffing Easter eggs for the annual Easter egg hunt. Like, this is awesome. How cool is this? And you do it because you love the community, but it also gives you a sense of pride that you are part of something bigger than you. You're doing something for the better good of the community. And each one of those people on the list, I'm just proud to know and proud to be part of this whole thing. I'm truly honored.
Well, I keep saying that one of my favorite parts my favorite part about doing this interview series is the people that, like Brian, like you mentioned, Brian Keelty, who came in, and I've known Brian for 20 years and we're friends, and, it was a great, fun interview to do.
Yeah.
And then there are people like, Jen Ansay, who I've never met before in my life before she came in the door yesterday to record her interview. And by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, you're lovely. Like I fully understand why you're here. And there's been so many people that I've interviewed for this that I already knew, and I knew why they were here, and I knew why they deserved it, and it was fantastic. And then there's so many people that I didn't know, and through reading their bio and through talking to them, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you fall into that in-between category for me of, I know you, I would consider us friends. I knew nothing about any of this.
Yeah.
And so to sit down and have this conversation and get to really learn about you has just been fantastic.
Thank you.
Really eye-opening. And of course, this is incredibly well-deserved. And so I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And it is, excuse me, I wish that we had more time to chat. Like, I do feel like I want to know you more.
Oh, listen, you can
that's
come
crazy.
back anytime. This is it for this show, but you can come back anytime.
Thank you.
I'm here always. I'm chained to this desk, actually. They don't let me leave. So you can come back anytime. The door's open. But thank you so much for being here. Anything you want to plug before we go?
I just want to say congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce, 100 years. That's a huge accomplishment this year. I also want to give a shout out to All About Westerly. I know that Greg Separita is just a great guy. He's so nice.
Absolutely.
And we've done a lot of podcasts over the last couple of years here. Well, I guess 3 or 4 years now. He'd know exactly. But I failed to mention that for my bio when I went to do something. And when I saw him, I thought, oh no, he does a lot for the community. And I'm really glad to mention that. But I just want to say, I truly am honored and just completely blown away that we have such a great community. And I'll tell you what, if we could do 100 under 50 or under 70. I have so many people, but I believe there is a 50 over 50.
There will be a 50 over 50 spoiler alert coming later in the year.
Yeah. I'm excited to see that too.
Hopefully there's a little bit of a breather between them.
Sure.
These are a lot.
I was going to say, it's a lot for you. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, of course I'll do those. And now I'm like 50 interviews and editing them and stuff. It's, I'm like, yeah, I do that in 3 weeks anyway. Yeah. And now I'm like, oh yeah, right. But an additional 50.
Well, they got the right guy for the job. So we appreciate you doing it. Thank
you. Well, Suzanne Giorno, this is awesome. So well-deserved. Congratulations. I want to say thank you to the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to Valenti Family of Dealerships for sponsoring this, and 321 Media, which always feels weird to say thank you to 321 Media since I basically am 321 Media, although there's a lot of us now. So thank you, Suzanne Giorno, and congratulations. We'll be back next time with more 50 Under 50. Bye for now.